Okay, in our first lecture, we are talking about the difference between a monoatomic ion and a polyatomic. Up until this point, the types of ions we've seen, atoms with charges, have been monoatomic. Mono meaning one. Monoatomic atoms, monoatomic ions. So for example, the ones we've seen so far are ones like Na+1 or Cl-1. Okay, a single atom that carries a charge. What we're moving to discussing now are actually called polyatomic ions. Poly meaning many. And in polyatomic ions, it's many atoms that are going to carry a charge. So for example, common one is sulfate, SO4 -2, or phosphate, PO4 -3. And they could also be cations too. For example, something called ammonium, which is NH4+. You can see the difference between these two is that the monoatomic only has one atom with a charge, whereas the polyatomic has many atoms with a charge. So now we're incorporating these new polyatomic atoms in our discussion with ionic bonding. I'm going to scroll down here and take a look at a picture of one of my favorite guys, Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's go ahead and find him here. There he is, Leo. Now, why am I including Leo in this? Well, a couple years ago, Leonardo DiCaprio starred in a film called Inception. It was about layering dreams within dreams. And polyatomic ions are kind of like the inception of chemistry. What ends up happening, for example, I have PO4 -3, is that in ionic bonding, polyatomic ions are essentially covalent bonds within an ionic bond. The dream within the dream, the bond within the bond. So when we draw a Lewis dot structure, for phosphate, I'll show you how to draw a Lewis dot structure here in a few minutes in our next video. And we look at how phosphate is bonding, we can clearly see that phosphate is sharing electrons, which you all know is covalent bonding. So within the ion, polyatomic ion, there are covalent bonds. However, we see here that this phosphate has an overall charge of -3. So what this brings to mind is, okay, even though these are covalently bonded, this ion is going to be able to participate in ionic bonding. So let's say, for example, that aluminum comes around. That positive cation will be attracted to this negative anion, this polyatomic ion, and they will be able to form an ionic bond. So this is how polyatomics are actually the inception of chemistry, a covalent bond within an ionic bond.